Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree the Podcast is brought to you by soccer90.com. I know we always tell you 20% off. You know the code. Third Degree, soccer90.com, FC Dallas gear, U.S. men's national team, North Texas Soccer Club, international gear. Everything you can want, they got it. Soccer90.com. Enter code Third Degree at checkout, 20% off your order.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fans. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast episode. Hold on, 199 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it is me, Peter, tagging along with my good friend first, Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
I was waiting for the howdy. Whew, it came.
And my very good friend, longtime compadre in all things Dallas soccer, you know him, you love him, the good Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Peter, I realized the other day that you and I have been hanging out for half my life now. So there you go. Over 25 years. That's
ridiculous, is it
ridiculous.
Not?
Yep.
Hey, Buzz, it appears that you have acquired a new thing in your life, and so I have on order from Amazon Prime, and it should be at your house any day, the "Don't Come A-Knockin' If This Trailer Is Rockin' bumper sticker, okay?
Thanks.
So,
appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I got it in like highlighter yellow with,
Not
black
red
letters.
crayon?
So, well, yes, actually, I can always order it back in white background with red crayon.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your casita, sir. I'm sure we'll
Thanks.
be doing an episode of the podcast from there sometime soon.
Yeah, I would imagine there will be one. If nothing else in the summer, there'll be one for sure.
Okay, well, here we are. We are in the episode prior to the start of the season, and yes, there was a friendly exhibition match to end the preseason we'll talk about in a minute, but I do think we have to get into first, Dan, unless you object otherwise, I think we got to get into the surprising trade that we found out about yesterday. Brandon Cervania, homegrown midfielder, traded pretty much Stevenly to Toronto for Jesus Jimenez and an international slot. What's your reaction, Mr. Buzzard?
Well, I'm going to say, number one, that it was not all that surprising, frankly, and actually wasn't even Steven, for that matter. It's not that surprising because on this Patop podcast, we've been talking about the tradability of Brandon Cervania since the middle of last season, basically, since Siki and Sebeling started to progress himself. And certainly we have since Sebastian Lletget joined the team and shifted Paxton's role a little bit and thus basically firmly planted Brandon on the bench. And the bottom line is that in a league which has a salary cap and has roster restrictions, which most leagues have roster restrictions, but in this league we have a limit on the number of sort of prime of career players that you can have because there's only 20 on the senior team and there's only a certain amount of money. You have 10, developmental kids or whatever. You can't really afford to have 3 players that are in sort of the prime of their career on one position. So it was almost always going to be a case where somebody needed to go. And Brandon had more tradability and more value probably than Siki and Sebeling did. So it's not a shocker that this trade happened when you combine Brandon's tradability with the club's stated search for a 9. So I really like the move. I think that that's more of a caliber 9 than I was expecting. I thought that they would, not specifically in this trade, but seek a journeyman backup 9, and they ended up with a starting caliber 9, which is, wow, that's exciting.
Okay, Dan, I'm surprised to hear Buzz describe Jesus Jimenez as a starting caliber 9 because he was essentially the third striker on Toronto. What are your reactions to the trade?
I mean, he started 30 games last year. That's a starting caliber striker, right? Yeah, I think he had that great spell to start with. 7 goals in 9 games. They had a little bit of a downtime, and then in the summer, Toronto changed the system to suit a couple of Italian players they'd brought in. I think I think the best way I could put it is I retweeted the FC Dallas thing with the comment: anytime you get a DP player without using a DP tag, that's a win.
How are they able to pull that off? Was he a DP for Toronto?
No, he was paid down, and Toronto keep a portion of his cap hit.
Okay.
Yeah, to just explain that a little further, he qualified for Toronto like Dallas does all the time, which is these 6 or 7 players that are above the DP threshold, but not like 3 million. They're like, they're between $1 million and what'll probably be this year, like 630, 635 or something for the DP threshold. And so you buy down their salary with GAM, so they're not a DP. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about a player that gets paid $800,000. And for Dallas, that's guys like Facu or Paxton as an example, guys that are above the threshold but aren't technically DPs. And he was like that for them. So he's a player of that caliber, getting paid a good chunk of money, a DP chunk of money, but isn't one of these guys that's going to be a lock-in DP because you can buy him down. And effectively, this is the interesting part, because Toronto was a bad team and they're in a rebuild mode. So they're dumping everything they can dump in order to try and bring in new things, because that's what you do when you're not good. So in order to get rid of him to Dallas, they're going to eat. They're not going to send Dallas money. They're going to keep a portion of his cap hit on their budget. That's different than actually sending money. But
right.
It means that what it means is that Dallas will get him, the buy down part from Dallas will be on Toronto's book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Dallas will pay up to the threshold basically, and then they'll pay the rest, which is interesting because that means probably that Dallas maybe didn't have a lot of GAM laying around anymore. It's been a while since they sold anybody. And also they included an international spot. Again, also interesting because it means Dallas still has an open international spot and still has an open DP spot. So double interesting in that sense. And so that's what I mean by it wasn't even an even trade. They gave a bunch of stuff to make this deal happen.
So I think, that was kind of the thing. I'd tweeted saying that, anytime you get a DP player without that DP tag, that's a win. And I had a bunch of Toronto fans messaging me about, he's not a DP player though. I'm like, well, no, if he earns $800,000 a year, I'm not saying he's a DP quality player necessarily, but he is in fact a DP level salary. That's a binary thing. It's not an opinion. It's a factual matter. As a depth option behind Jesus Ferreira, who is going to have time out for the Gold Cup, who is probably going to, have some kind of rebounding effect off of playing an absurd number of games last year, that's great. That's fantastic. Like Buzz said, you still have an international spot, you still have a DP spot. You can address your, another centre midfield backup is a lot easier to obtain than a centre forward backup. You can, you still have those roster designations for, potentially a starting centre back or a solution to the 6. That's a win. That's great late business.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear you both say that he started 30 games last year. I obviously don't follow Toronto very closely, and I knew that when the big guys came in, that probably changed things for Jimenez, but I was not super aware of him to begin with. But I will say this, it does feel like a significant upgrade from Hara, which is a good deal, right? Because that's what you need, is you need somebody to come in and back up. You need a Jesus for a Jesus, and it's got to be better than Hara. And it sounds like this worked out well. I guess, and now that Buzz has also explained why they'd be willing to get rid of him is because they're trying to dump and clear roster space for other things. Because it did. If he's as good and as big, and if he is technically a DP quality guy, as much as I love Brandon, it does not feel like it does seem like a weird trade.
Well, think about it this way, like, you just mentioned it's a better replacement. It's a better backup than Hara. Franco Hara had 4 goal interactions last season. All he's got to do is hit 5, and he's already achieved better for, nearly a third of the salary. That's great.
Yeah. If you look at his line, 33 games, 27 starts, 2,300 minutes. That's pretty good. 9 goals and 3 assists. There's been years around here where 9 goals has led this team in scoring. So you don't think of this guy, and that's, as Dan said, there was a big drop off in the amount of touches and passes, setups he was getting last year. A guy, again, in 22 key passes, right, which is a goal scoring, creating opportunity pass. So the dude is typical Spanish style, which is this movement-based striker, kind of like Jesus in some ways. Coach said that he does run a little bit higher line than Jesus does. So again, a little bit of a different style than Jesus. So again, some versatility. A guy that can also break lines, a guy that also can play combined soccer, which is what Dallas likes to do. So there's a good system fit with the Spanish coach. All around. Worst case scenario, if this guy is Franco Jara on $800K instead of $3 million, that's a win, right? You just dumped a bunch of budget money, even if it's not a cap win. You cleared up a DP spot, if nothing else, to get a guy that's at bare minimum the same value, and I think he'll be more value. I think he's good enough that there will be times when they'll play a two-striker system, or as Dan said, with this upload in Open Cup and Leagues Cup, and now if you make the playoffs, this triple first round thing, and the load of games has gone way up for some teams. They're gonna be times when Jesus is missing on Gold Cups or U.S. national teams, and maybe you don't want to play him right away when he comes back. You want to give him a week off. So this club's in a weird boat now, where almost any spot there's now two legitimate people competing directly for a spot. That's weird.
What a novel idea.
I know, what a concept, right? Now, in almost any case, you have a guy you prefer on paper, probably. Most of us would in most positions. But still, you have a legitimate starter caliber player, if not in salary, I think, an actual ability to play, pressing Jesus, or maybe they both play.
Yeah.
And we can talk in a bit about how that might work. But, this is a move that on paper is outstanding. Of course, you never know until you see it execute. But I like all the bones of this move. I think are really well done, as Dan said, late in the window. And as I said, we've long thought Brandon was tradable. We've been saying since we started hearing Franco was leaving that they would need a replacement for that. A veteran, I thought, kind of a journeyman backup type was what I was expecting. This guy's better than that, so that's a win.
All right, so I want to tie this, because this is really the resulting question that came out of this for me when I saw the news is, I don't have a real sense that this guy is a huge game changer. But again, like I said, I did feel like he was a significant upgrade over Franco Jara for a whole lot of reasons, salary-wise, age-wise, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that really dawned on me is tied to the fact that we've now completed a preseason where FC Dallas scored 2 goals the entire
I think that's about right. Yeah.
The entire preseason.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of, I didn't see any of the games for the most part. They were hard to find. I only saw little bits and pieces of the Houston game. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But, I haven't obviously seen all the stats, but my understanding and my perception is that the attack is not significantly better or any different than it was last year. And so that's a long path to get to this question. Is it possible that getting a guy like Jimenez is a backup plan or alternative tactically for this club in pushing the two Jesuses up front in a more traditional striker and Mr. Ferrer as a 10 lineup?
Well, it's definitely a push Jesus. If you play the same 4-3-3, it's definitely a push Jesus caliber player legitimately. The kind of money he's making is the kind of money that you spend on a veteran foreign player. You can look at guys that Dallas has brought in. He's right in the same neck of the woods of the salaries as Martinez and Facundo. This is right where these guys kind of cost. You have the direct option of he could sub in for Jesus. We saw some games last year where Franco Jara had to come in, and that wasn't necessarily the game punch you were looking for. You can also bring him in and play a 2-striker system, whether he would just start that way or sub in that way, either one. And you can do that in multiple ways. You can play a 3-5-2. We've seen him experiment with that a little bit. You can sort of invert your front three and end up with 2 strikers and a guy underneath. You can play a 4-2-3-1, which is the way they played with Oscar Pereira all the time, and have Jesus be that underneath guy. So there's lots of ways to get both these guys on the field at the same time. You're getting into a level of conversation with this idea that something has to give. There's a front. This dude's not going to play 6. So between Paxton, Leggett, Velasco, Areola, and Jesus, if this guy's getting into a game, one of those 5 guys is probably coming out of a game, unless you're going to play a shorter defender. So this is where you start to what we call a good headache. It's like, man, it's a pain to try and figure out who's going to play. Well, that's great for a coach and also hard for a coach at the same time. Again, workload is massive around these parts these days, right? This coach loves to use all 5 subs. He loves to mitigate minutes and workload on guys by subbing them out at 60 minutes, 70 minutes all the time. So I think you would expect this guy not to start 30 games here, but to pick up a pretty heavy load, and maybe end up with 10 to 15 starts and, a good 2,000 minutes by subbing into every game he's not starting. Just as part of Nico Esteves' massive workload management he does, where they sub out everybody except Marco Farfan.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because I don't know if we've even talked enough about, is there a concern around this team? I know a lot of people are concerned about the defense and Matt Hedges leaving and who's going to do what, and is that going to lessen the improvements that they made, the dramatic improvements they made in defense last year? Is that going to fall off this year? But I got, and we'll talk about this when we get to predictions at the end of this episode. My one big driving concern is I'm just not convinced, for all the attacking individual talent they have, that the tactical setup that Nico's been using is really maximizing those guys, and the preseason continues to drive my concern that this team just isn't very dangerous in attack, and that's, I don't know if you feel the same way or have any different opinion about that.
Well, just like last year, I think this club's going to be dependent on good finishing. It's not a high chance creation offense. And this is what we saw in Houston, right? This club has for a while now been a case of, if they're finishing well, and last year we saw one of the best shot to goal ratios we've ever seen here. I think it's going to continue to be that case. They keep it rigid. Is that a word, defensively, where they keep a really good shape and they don't want to betray that and break that down, perhaps? Jimenez, on the upside, his 9 goals last year came on only 21 shots on target. So that's 2.3 shots on target per goal. That's pretty efficient. That's in the neighborhood of where Dallas is when they're at really good play. He only 53 shots total, which is basically like 4 shots per goal. Total, not shots on target, but just shots, period. So again, this guy fits the style that Dallas currently plays. Am I concerned big picture about scoring? No, it's the same as last year. I worry that when they go cold, that then they're in trouble. But when their clinical efficiency's on, they're fine. And that proved to be the case the whole year up until maybe the last game or two with Jesus, when he maybe was starting to feel a little bit of pressure. But I think I feel the same going into this season as I did through most of last season, that Jesus is a pretty good finisher, and you'd like to see a couple other guys get a little bit better at their finishing. But I think they're going to be okay. It's not the offense. Goals aside, it's not the offense that I'm worried about. I'm definitely one of those guys that's worried about the defense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you on all this, dear Dan?
Yeah, I think the defense is probably the concern. You don't have Matt Hedges' leadership. Ibiaga may take a minute to develop a good partnership with Nicosi or Jose Martinez. I think I didn't see much of the friendly, but the little bits I did, there was still Martinez kind of getting stuck in no man's land and making crappy passes, notably to Martin Pass. Yeah, and then you've still got the 6 still isn't settled. You're still splitting time. You're losing consistency there. When FC Dallas has had a great 6, be it like a Danny Hernandez or Carlos Grueso, someone that can drop back and be reliable, and they know those combinations. Having mid-game adjustments because you switch Edwin and Facu, it just unbalances the defense a little bit. So there's definitely, some small worries there.
One of my big concerns is something that I think Coach Esteves would say is one of his strengths. He's trying to show this versatility of being able to switch guys in and out and switch systems on the fly. That's all well and good, but this spring we've been seeing a lot of that. He's building off of last year. I think there's been enough I feel there's been enough change this year that that may not really work. Like even today, which is like, you can't go hard on Friday for your game on Saturday. And Friday's just a walkthrough. Thursday's like your last day to work on like a specific jacket. Tuesday and Wednesday is when you go hard, working out the kinks, working out the stuff, working on the basic things you're going to implement for the game. So even today, Tuesday leading into the starting game of the season, it was flip-flop all day long. Every time they would have, not every time, once they got into the part of the training sessions that was the bigger team concepts where you had 11 versus 11, whether it was with small goals or when they got into full goals, almost every 5 minutes, guys are flipping teams and shifting. So the pairs kept shifting. The starting groups kept shifting. There was one or two guys that weren't available for, typical preseason knocks. That also was a thing. Point being is that like we're 5 days out from the first game and there wasn't this clearly defined, here's the opening day starting 11. We're going to lock it down for a week. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that for like 2 weeks, and we're not even seeing it for a week. So that makes me a little nervous when you're conceptually trying to build on last season when there's been enough change. I don't think that's necessarily fair.
Yeah, I think is that not maybe indicative of the fact that MLS regular season largely is not all that. I mean, especially now that we really have a grasp and understanding of what the playoff structure is going to be, and we can talk about that. Look, the first several weeks of the MLS season is, by and large, kind of meaningless, and it's almost like a preseason unto itself. I mean, that's really frustrating and not a lot of fun, but maybe that's why you're seeing all this kind of uncertainty, or at least shifting about, because they know they've got time to work on it. Yeah,
it's definitely fair. It depends on whether you think it's important to be in the top half of the standings and how important this home field is. You want to be in the top of the West and how confident you are you're going to be in the top of the West. Around here, this traditional summer fade is real.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to get out for a pretty damn good start. But then there's also maybe a thought that like, oh, I don't want to peak at the beginning of the year. I want to peak towards the middle part of the year. So, maybe you're right. Maybe it is the long season that makes you not worry about it. I mean, we're going to find out, certainly. Coaches getting paid a lot of money, I would presume, in order to make these decisions. But it just makes me a little nervous that there's no, we worry about these new these really important new combos. Whoever the starting center back pairing is, who's going to be the sixth that's going to play with these two, with Paxton and Leggett. I worry about some of these really important concepts, these teamwork concepts. Who's it right back? We don't know the answer to that question. So your main defensive triangle, the base of your entire formation, and your right back, that's the majority of your defense, has not really played together consistently this spring. And so really, in my opinion, probably has very little cohesion at this point. And that's worrying going into the season.
Dan, if you had to make a prediction on who the starting 11 are for Saturday, could you do that?
Ooh, I think so. I think, for the most part, the starting 11 kind of picks itself a little bit. The ones up in the air, I guess, would be at the 6 with Faku and Edwin. I think you're more likely to see Martinez and Ibiaga start. Probably Giovanni Jesus, given that Emma's had a bit of a short preseason. Jesus up top, usual wings. I think, Jimenez arriving, let's say assume he arrives today, he's got a pretty short week to get embedded in the team and certainly not in a position to start.
So pretty much the same thing, except for a different center back and maybe a different right back?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Buzz, before I ask you for your starting 11, have you seen or heard or gotten a vibe overall about because we talk constantly about this concern about the center back pairing of who you think one, have they solved that problem? Do you feel like they have? And two, who do you think are the long-term starting center backs for this team?
No, I don't think they've solved it. I think that right now they'll still go into the summer with that as the primary target. They've saved a DP spot, they've saved an international spot. You have to think that more than likely there's going to be at least one, if not two sales this summer. If Che and Seeley go, probably Che far more likely than Seeley, but that brings in some money you can use to help get a guy, your TAM stuff that you need to sign people. So no, I don't think they've solved their long-term center back problem. I think right now you have three guys that are capable enough. I'd hate to have to be putting money on which two are going to start. Based on the last preseason game, you would assume it's Martinez and Ibeagha with Facundo. But then the pairings that I watched today, it was Nkosi and Ibeagha went first with Edwin. And Edwin got more time with the main group than Facundo did. And then Martinez rotated in rather quickly, and you ended up with Nkosi playing with the first group far more than the other two, but yet he was also with Martinez, and then it was also Martinez and Ibeagha. So other than the fact that I agree that I think Giovanni Jesus will start, mainly because Tuamasi had COVID, which put him back on fitness, and then he had a couple of knocks in Spain. And so even today I was watching him run, and he looks a little stiff. So I think there's, that's made it virtually impossible for him to hold down the starting spot for opening day. I think. I mean, he rotated in, but I'm pretty sure that one's going to be Giovanni Jesus. But I honestly think you could flip a coin on who's going to start of those three guys at center back, and you have just as good a chance as I do of predicting who it's going to be. And I would have thought, like I said, it was Spaco until today when I watched Edwin get 65% of the time and Facundo 40% of the time. So it's don't know.
All right, so now I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yep.
I'm not asking who you predict will be. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to be the starting 11?
Well, you know where I stand on Facundo and Edwin. Facundo is a serviceable center back. He's okay. Six. He's okay. I don't think you can win anything with Facundo, who is what he is at 29, or is he 30 yet? And the same is true of Edwin right now. So if you want to buy into the someday I can win with Edwin, then I'm 100% in with then play him every game, because he needs the games, period. If you're going to try and win something, I don't want to win the opening day. I want them to win MLS Cup. So play Edwin the whole way. But if you don't think it can be one of those two guys, then this season is a waste, and you might as well buy out Facundo. But Dallas is not going to do that. They're just going to let his contract run out, and they're going to go for somebody next year, if that's what they believe. So it should be Edwin, just for that reason alone. I don't know that it will be, though. And then center back pairing, I think that this needs to be the year of Nkosi. You need to give him at least half the first half of the season, and maybe even the whole season, to find out if he's going to be the guy or not. Because Martinez and Ibeagha are both basically 30, right? So you can't assume that those dudes are going to be good for the next 2 or 3 seasons while you make a run at it. And Nkosi's 26. So if he's the guy, then it can be him. So give it to him. There's I just think at some point you need to stop playing for right now. Yes, I know, make the playoffs, but now you got 9 teams making the playoffs. So
everybody makes the playoffs,
right? So I would say 100% Nkosi and Edwin should play from day one this season, and then Ibeagha or Martinez can be on the left. I would go with Ibeagha because I think Ibeagha is a better athlete than Martinez and covers more ground than Martinez, and I worry about that with Martinez. That gap between him and Farfan is the most susceptible thing in the Dallas defense. We saw team after team target that gap last year. People recognize that gap is an issue. Now, I know Martinez is a good passer out of the back. I know he's a good communicator back there, especially with Facundo in front of him. That language, some familiarity. I get that. I get that he's the natural lefty. But, I would go with Edwin, Nkosi, and Ibeagha at left center back, just because I want to find out if that setup can work or if I have to rebuild the whole thing next year, basically.
And the rest of the 11?
Oh, it's what you'd say. Farfan, Paxton, Lletget, Velasco, Ariel, and Jesus.
Okay.
Especially opening day. There's no way in heck you can get Jimenez involved quick enough to be a starting. he can come off the bench first game. But
all right, so now this is where I'm gonna tie this all together with kind of my original question about the Jimenez trade, which is, if you were the person to decide the formation and the tactics, are you happy with Nico Esteves's tactical selection and what he's been doing with the players that he has? Do you feel like he's maximizing his talent?
Yeah. The one that isn't is Jesus.
That's the least confident I've ever heard out of.
Yeah, it's because of Jesus. I think Jesus is probably his best player.
Which one?
Sorry, that's going to be a problem. Ferreira. I think he's probably Dallas's best player when he's on, and I think he's at his best when he's an off striker. But playing two strikers is tough. It's like nobody really plays that way anymore for a reason. Getting a formation that fits that is difficult. One version of that's a 3-5-2, but are there enough good center backs to do that? And it means taking off somebody like Areola, or Velasco to make it happen, or Leggett. One of those three's got to make way, really. Because in order to do it, you probably have to play a double pivot, which means that Paxton would have to drop in next to somebody, and he's the most capable of doing that of those people on the front five, to drop in next to a 6. So it's a tough decision. It's a tough call. So far, he's very married to a 4-3-3, despite his occasional tweaks to other formations. So, I think he's maximized it as well as he can, other than Jesus. And building your whole team to have Jesus be a second striker is an interesting proposition. It would require kind of a bit of a rework of the whole tactical system, and I'm not sure he wants to do that at this point. I think they'll start the season with Jimenez as a reserve, basically, and sort of see what happens, see where it goes from there.
It does, Dan, and I don't know if you would agree with this. If there is a reason to be concerned about this season, and by concern, I mean, it seems silly to speculate that they may not make the playoffs because of the announcement on the playoff structure. But I think if you're going to establish a concern, meaning that they end up not performing or finishing as high in the standings as they did this year, and if there's a reason to feel like that, is that it does feel like what Buzz talked about earlier, which is this whole attack is predicated on a lot of people being in form and finishing their chances, and that always feels like a really weird proposition to hang your season on.
It absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of say it's the wet blanket moment, but there's not a whole lot of certainty to success with Dallas right now.
Yeah, if Nico's going to continue to run out a tactical, a set of tactics that is not high in number of chance creation and really dependent on people converting their chances, it just feels like that the odds of them cooling off and really falling off are way greater than them continuing into a new season at the pace they were at last year, Buzz.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the volatility in the predictions that people made on FC Dallas, it swung from 2nd to 7th, which, is fair. There's a volatility in what this team could look like. If everything that they've tried to do hits again, like it did last year, except for Nanu, they'll be really good. But if some of those things go off the rails, they'll be mediocre. I don't think they'll be bad. I think they're that won't happen because of the way they keep it locked down defensively. But, I can see 7th happening and I can see 2nd happening. The team really could be all over the map.
I mean, it's really the same thing as last year. We were saying that, there was a lot of change on the offensive side. If it came off, there was a lot of potential. If it didn't, then there's a chance of missing the playoffs. And now it's more so switched to the defensive side of the game. But ultimately, it's, New Year, same shit.
Well, but defensively, really, there's really only one change defensively. Now, it's obviously the most important one at the center back pairing, unless, and I'm just going to call him Giovanni Jesus, just because it's easier to do that.
Giovanni's not working for you?
Well, no, it's just with all the...
It's actually the Jesus part.
With all the Jesuses we've got running around, it seems funny to say it that way. Anyway, my point being is, unless he's just a stellar upgrade from Tuamasi, and I have no idea, I've never seen the guy play before. Maybe he is. It feels like that they're going to have a significant drop off defensively just because of the center back pairing change. If for that to, but the front part of the team is still this, and I'm always a big guy on consistency, right? And to Dan's point, they made a lot of changes last year, and they by and large all paid off. So you'd like to think that another season of consistency is really a really promising thing going into the season, which leads me to this question: isn't in many ways this entire season oddly tied to Alan Velasco really starting to pay off? Because if he has another season like he had last season, let me put it this way. If he has the season we all think he's capable of having, you suddenly have a very different opinion about how they feel like more of a second-place team than a seventh-place team.
Yeah, if Arriola and Velasco come anywhere near their 10-7 and 6-7, if they exceed that, and if Leggett contributes more from midfield, which you would expect since he'll be here for most of the year instead of just for a couple months, then it's all, for me, this whole season is going to be on Jesus. Not to put a lot of weight on you kids, sorry, but that rare as hell in the history of this club 18-goal season, especially when you throw in 6 assists, man, that's a tough replicate. I mean, granted, you expect a young man to take a step forward again. It's his age that makes it so exciting, but getting back to 18s, that's gonna be tough, especially when he's going to have national team duty and probably be missing from here and there, and the pressure at the end of last season maybe turned him cold a little bit. I mean, if he's cold, they could be a big outage up front, or maybe Jimenez is in a lot and Jesus is not playing, which God forbid that. I mean, for Jesus anyway, hopefully it would be because the other dude is producing big time. But there's a lot riding on the front three these days.
Well, I feel like I can make an argument that Velasco is the key to this season, that he's the one that has to show the most growth and the most improvement for a lot of reasons. So I'll ask you, Dan, who do you think's the most important player this season?
Ultimately, I think Jesus Ferreira. You kind of lived and died on his goals last season, and historically, it's not always been a consistent year to year. Can you make that happen?
All right,
Peter, I know what you're selling, and I'm gonna agree with you because Paul's 28, right? So that was a career year, and he's 28. He is what he is. So hopefully you get something similar, but you're not likely to get a lot better. Jesus, 18 goals and 6 assists, man, that's one of the great seasons in Dallas history. How likely is he to exceed that? I don't know. Not in this system. Not unless the chances go up. So you're right. The biggest growth potential is Velasco. 6 and 7 is pretty good for a kid that's 19. So that's the big growth potential, is that Alan Velasco's position, and Alan Velasco specifically. And you're correct that, if you're talking about getting to the top of MLS, that's the guy that has to make the big leap in order to really contend with this team.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that Jesus Ferreira having another stellar season of goal scoring is going to be directly tied to Velasco's production and output this year. Yeah. I mean, this team is going to need somebody else than Ferreira scoring goals, and they also need a guy coming off the wing that takes on defenders and beats defenders and challenges and scares the crap out of back lines. And that's what this guy's supposed to be. And we didn't see a ton of that last year. And that's what I feel like they've got to get out of him. Oh, and by the way, he's also going to be the most consistently available guy, knock on wood, injury pending, out of the front three, because the other two guys are probably going to get called up to national team duty.
Yep.
And he's going to be the one guy left over. And by the way, if there is a disappointment in the offseason, they didn't get rid of O'Brien and replace him with somebody better.
Yeah, some of that I think comes down to, again, some of these contracts are going to have to be ridden out. You can't necessarily just get rid of MLS pays enough money that sometimes it's hard to sell guys south of here that you might want to send back to where they came from.
Trade him.
You could have. I don't know. Our international spot, decent contract, not super high production. I don't know how much tradable he would have been, but sometimes you're just kind of stuck with a guy. Like I would say flat out, dump Facundo and get somebody. That's hard to do. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Okay. Well, interesting. Well, so I guess the question is for both of you guys, because we didn't really answer this point we made earlier, is the lack of goal scoring in the preseason concerning to you?
No, not really.
Okay.
A little bit, only in the sense of like, it doesn't bother me in the sense of chance creation. It bothers me a little bit in the sense of form. I'd like to see the team clicking a little more collectively. That's the only reason it's a concern, but as you pointed out, long season, man, they obviously are not that concerned about it. Plenty of time to get it going by the time you get in the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Dan?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's preseason. It's trying things out. It's getting into form, trying to be ready by that first game, or as soon as you can reasonably be ready. Yeah, I mean, I think I said it last week, right? That my team back home went undefeated in preseason. 1 year, got relegated, lost every game preseason. Another year, went undefeated the whole season. I mean, the only results that matter are the ones that you get points from, and whether it's a 2-0 loss in Houston where they kind of didn't look interested, or whatever went on in Spain. There were individual goals with that. There were fitness goals. There were goals to create scenarios within those games that otherwise wouldn't have been created, to try little things out, to try certain moves out. Yeah, we've kind of been around this enough to not take too much out of a game or a couple of games.
Okay, well, the season does start Saturday, 7:30 up in Frisco against the Loons, which is ironic considering that was the last game played at the stadium. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah, I am saying that correctly. So we'll go full circle, and we'll talk about our predictions here in just a little bit. Another thing to talk about is the fact, because the Houston game did get played very quietly under the dark of night without any promotion. I think I'm saying this correctly. The clubs were not allowed to promote this fact. The league did not promote this fact. I don't even think Apple promoted it. Very quietly, they live beta tested 3 matches over the weekend. First off was New England and Orlando. Dallas and Houston obviously was one. And then it was L.A. and who was it?
Toronto, wasn't it?
Yeah, L.A. and Toronto.
Yep.
The Galaxy and Toronto was the third. And this was fascinating to me. I'm really up in the business of Apple, and this is a weird crossing of streams for me, these two things. And I've been very adamant that what's happening between these two entities is something the rest of the sports world is keeping a keen eye on. Buzz, what was your general reaction to the soft launch over the weekend?
General reaction was, I love the 1080p. I thought it was fantastic. We're not used to seeing that for FC Dallas games. It looked beautiful.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I was out having dinner when the New England game started, and when I opened it up on my phone, my reaction immediately was equal to yours, like, holy cow, this immediately and instantly puts every other professional sports league regular broadcast to shame, because they're all at 720p or 1080i. And this 1080p, and for those that aren't technically understanding about resolutions, 1080p is the one level below 4K. And then I got home and I flipped on the Dallas-Houston game on my big screen, and it was back to being crap again. And I know that, like, while it was reporting to me that it was being sent to my devices in 1080p, there's no way that was a true 1080 picture, or it was horribly compressed, because I was really disappointed in the drop-off in quality, and you didn't see that, you're telling me.
Yeah, I did not see. I mean, I watched the Orlando game as well, like up until I switched streams. And to me, the FC Dallas stream looked almost exactly as good as the Orlando one. Like, if you'd have told me they were the same, I would have believed you. I didn't see any compression on my end of the Dallas game. Now, who knows why I didn't feel that way. I mean, this is what I do for a living, so I know what I'm looking at.
Sure.
It's possible that the differences are something simple as the Orlando Stadium has more light than Houston Stadium. I mean, like the Houston Stadium is under construction currently, so maybe they didn't have 100% of the lights on, possibly. Or maybe they used a different control pathway through the Vista control when they added the insertion of the studio.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Vista uplink fiber connection here was slightly not as good or something. But I know guys on TV that worked that game. I checked with them. That game in Houston was definitely in 1080p. They told me which truck it's on. I looked it up. That truck has 4K cameras. So, as far as I know on the technical side, if it wasn't as good, it's because something happened upstream of it and I didn't see it. One thing I will say about it, which I think people might find is fascinating, is that they produce 6 feeds at once of those Apple TV games out of the truck. One switcher cuts 6 feeds, which is pretty cool. And
what does that mean for people who don't understand?
6 versions of the game are being done at the same time. They do the domestic broadcast, which is the one that has graphics on it for Apple TV domestically in the States. They do a domestic clean, which is the exact same show but with no graphics on it. Then they do what's called a world feed, which is what you would see if you were watching a World Cup or whatever. You get the world feed that's being done by FIFA. And then the other countries that want it would add their own graphics. Now, the reason that happens is because maybe Apple or MLS is selling it to other broadcasters around the country or around the world, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a version, and that the difference is from the main feed is that there might be somebody in the truck that's cutting to a wide lock-off shot rather than do whatever the show is doing for the pregame. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
Or like for the anthem or whatever. Then there's a Spanish version, which is a full-blown version with Spanish broadcasters on it, even though the graphics are the same. It's a completely different version.
But the graphics are in Spanish, I would assume.
I think they're actually in English.
Oh, okay.
They're not doing a full-blown Spanish show. They're just adding a Spanish feed, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They'd have to do a whole other set of elements that they were going to do in Spanish. And then they send one to what's called Vista, which is the control center down in Florida. And then they send a direct one to New York for MLS. So those are the 6 feeds they do on this Apple version. And that's less than what they've done in the past. Usually, I think in the past it was 4 feeds, but now it's 6 because of Apple TV's involvement. So not that it's important. I just thought it would be kind of a color thing people might find interesting.
Yeah, I love the technical part of this, and I've got there's 3 different ways for me to watch content. I've got obviously mobile devices where everything looks great because it's a small screen and the pixels are all there. I've got a 65-inch Samsung flat screen, and then I've got a big projector. And any sports on the big wall projector just don't ever look good. It's just too big of a screen, and the pixels aren't made for it, or the feeds aren't made for it really. Now, I will say, Premier League games in 4K, at least in my case off DirecTV, actually do look good on the biggest screen. But again, that's a full 4K and a legitimate 4K production, right? And that would be great, and hopefully Apple gets there.
Peter, did you have motion smoothing on? Is that what it was?
No. Well, I do use a little. You know what? Motion smoothing is not bad for sports. There is some benefits to motion smoothing on any device for action like sports. It's not good for movies or television, but for sports, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Your mileage may vary, but I would say in going back and watching the 3 games just on the traditional 65-inch television and kind of reviewing it, I did see differences between the 3, but I also have to say, I don't know if that's a byproduct of viewing those as on-demand, stored on a server somewhere. Maybe there's some compression added to that at that point for space considerations or something that I hadn't thought about versus what it looked like when it was live.
That's possible, actually, now that you say that.
Yeah. I mean, look, it does look better than everything else, no matter what. I am nitpicking to the finest degree.
Yeah,
I was just so excited when I first looked on my phone and saw the Orlando New England game I would have made the argument that was a 4K production. It looked so good on my phone when I first turned it on. That's why I was a little let down when I got home and it looked like a regular 1080 NFL game. But other than that, there was a lot of things about it that I really liked, and I'm sure you did too.
Yeah, my other comments are that Adrian Healy mispronounced a whole bunch of names all the time, which always happens with Dallas on national broadcast.
Which makes him a guest next week, oddly enough.
And number 2, the graphics load in general. As a guy that spent most of his early career in TV doing graphics, the graphics package is phenomenal. It is so crisp and clean. It doesn't have all caps. It's upper lowers. God, I love it. It's so beautiful. Except for the bug. Now, some people may not know what a bug is. The bug is what we call the score bug up in the corner, the little score that's in there all time. We call it as a bug for slang. This is like a bug on your screen. To me, it's a little too big. It needs to be sized down just a little bit. And The bar is at its base is kind of gray, but there's no dividers between the colors for the jerseys. So when they had the white next to the gray, you almost couldn't tell that it was a white chip. And when they had a black one, the black for sure bled into the thing, and so you couldn't tell there was a black chip. So when they started the Revs game, they had blue instead of red for the Revs, but they changed it to white because technically the Revs were in their white jersey, but white next to white should have been red. And I know for sure that like on a lot of broadcasts I work, if the team is in white, you don't ever put them in white because the text on the graphics is white or the backgrounds of the pieces are white. So even though the team's in a white jersey, if it's Duke and they're white jerseys, you still make it blue. So
the graphics are done in the truck on site of the game, correct?
Yes.
Not at headquarters. Okay.
Yeah, in the truck. Yeah. I mean, you could do it if you were doing a Remy, what they call a remote, a Remy, where you were you were sending just cameras back to a facility. You could do graphics remotely, just like you do talent remotely. That does happen, but these were done in the truck. So,
Buzz, it's so hot when you use game production jargon.
Sorry, it's mostly just slang.
A Remy,
yeah, a Remy, yeah. People in the business call ESPN, they call it ESPN, which drives me crazy. You can say ESPN. There's no need to slang ESPN to ESPN. It's so stupid. Yeah,
guys, we've come so far away from Spectrum, Time Warner Sports, and those 480.
Oh my gosh!
Broadcasts they would do.
Yes, the old day of it being 480 and standard definition at 4:3 aspect ratio, and you got to see like 20% of the field at any particular time. I'm so spoiled. If you haven't had a chance to watch a Premier League game in 4K, because that is available now pretty much week in and week out for a select set of games over the course of a weekend, you really are missing it because it's such a tremendous treat to be able to watch any sport in 4K, but soccer is so beautiful when they do it and it looks right, and it just makes you infuriated that you can't get that for the NFL on a regular basis.
Yeah, you should be able to. That's merely a network transmission issue because all TV trucks these days are built 1080p at least, and most of the new ones are built 4K. They just dumb it down, right? Because all the Fox regionals were built out 720. Their mistake. Fox screwed that up big time. They've admitted that. But you don't build a new truck. These trucks, by the way, cost tens of millions of dollars. You don't build a new one of those and make it dumb. You build it fancy. So like the one that did the Dallas game, I'm telling you, all the cameras are 4K. That truck could probably output a 4K show, I would assume, because I think it's a truck that does NASCAR. So it outputted 1080p, no problem. You just switch it down. And like if you do a game these days that goes on Bally's, they just down convert the truck. They do the truck production in full blown, and they just down convert it when they send it
because
out.
the issue largely is the provider, because the cable systems or the satellite providers aren't built to they don't have the bandwidth to provide 4K or 1080p. They weren't built for that. DirecTV really struggles with having to super compress channels just for 720p or 1080i, and then they've got just a little bit of space for their 4K channels. They only got 3 of them, and only one of them has content on it 24 hours a day. So
that's where a streamer like Apple TV actually has a leg up, because they can do whatever they want to.
And that's why I'm hoping, because all of this is streamed, that Apple will eventually shift to 4K feeds, because that's really the kind of thing that would set this apart for everybody else.
People I know say that they talked about it. They discussed going to 4K, but I think they would have raised some of the costs, because there are trucks that you can get that are not 4K still, that are just 1080. And so if you'd have been forced to go 4K everywhere, that would have definitely raised costs. So they just went with the plain old, if you will, 1080p, but it was definitely something that came up, I'm told, So I think it's someday, I think eventually you will. It's just a question of the other side of that equation, Peter, as you know, is the amount of 4K TVs in homes. 4K TVs in homes is not a high percentage. I mean, it is for nerds like us. No. I mean, Dallas, Texas has only like 40% cable penetration, let alone like actual like 4K televisions.
I was working under the assumption that because everybody's bought a new TV, it feels like in the last 3 or 4 years, that everybody has a 4K capable television. They just don't have the content or the provider to give it to them.
No, I think your expectations will not line up with the average income of most people.
Well, you can go buy a 4K television from TCL for $200.
Yeah.
And the Hensei television is an amazing television. That brand new Hensei they just debuted at CES is 65 inches. It's arguably the best performing television on the market right now, bar none. And it's like $700.
Well, we'll Google it, but I think some later and talk about it. But I think you'd be surprised that it's not as high as you would think.
It may not be. I'm fooling myself. Look, what I hope out of this is that people turn on the games on Apple TV, whatever device they're watching it on, and they notice a difference, right? And as long as the general person, not some nitpicky video nerd like myself or you, Buzz, I guess this. Hey, Dan, did you notice a difference?
Yeah, it's massively different.
Okay, there you go.
All right, real fast Google: 44% of U.S. TVs are 4K.
Okay.
So that's
probably lower than I thought, but
it's
maybe higher
than
than you thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Good Googling.
Good
sir.
Googling. Yep.
All right. Well, Dan, I'm glad you noticed a difference, and I hope people listening to the pod notice a difference. That's all I really care about, is that people are enjoying and feeling like they're getting a better image quality than they were getting on whatever, ESPN or Fox or, it'll be interesting that people watch a game for a run of weeks on Apple TV, and then their team is on Fox traditional broadcast the following week, and they go watch that. And I wonder if there's a kind of a reaction that you see on social media, like, wow, this sucks compared to when I'm streaming it on Apple TV.
I'm interested to see whether the version that's on Fox is just they take the Apple and put it on Fox, or whether they add their own commentators. I mean, they'll have to have their own graphics for sure, but.
I thought they were doing Fox was doing their own commentators for those games.
Probably, I guess. But will they take the world feed and slap a graphic on it? Or are they going to produce their own show on top of what's already there?
Interesting. Yeah.
Some nerd TV in me wants to know what that's going to look like.
Is there any game an opening week that is on Fox this first week?
I assume so.
I haven't seen anything. I just assumed they were all on Apple TV because, by the way, if you haven't signed up for it yet, all the games this week on Apple TV are free. You don't have to buy anything. You can just get the Apple TV device or app, or you can just go and watch it online if you want to. The only thing you're going to be required to do is create an Apple, a free Apple account, and that's all you're going to have to do, and you'll get all the games for free. I think it's at least for the first few weeks.
Saturday, New York City FC at Nashville is 3:30 p.m. on Fox.
Oh, it is the Fox game.
Sunday,
okay.
Colorado at Seattle, 7 p.m. on FS1.
Interesting. Well, that'll be fun to see. Your question, Buzz, if they just take the Apple thing and throw it up on the satellite, that'll be good.
Yep.
Dan, you didn't get a chance to. I'm sorry, I've been hogging this with Buzz. Did you have any feedback or thoughts about what you saw on the Apple TV beta testing?
No, I mean, I think it carries on with the kind of crisp look that they were looking for with everything. There were some difficulties in finding the game, particularly after the fact to watch the replay. But
I think they were just hiding it, right?
Yeah, I mean, initially it said it was an internal test. I think they just kind of maybe thought, oh, actually, this is a good chance to do a public beta, or just, oh crap, someone accidentally made this visible.
Did either one of you watch any of the studio stuff? Because that's something I didn't get to see.
Yeah,
did you have any reaction to any of that?
Dan?
It looked good. I mean, I wasn't really too bothered with the content, but it looked super professional.
I like Weeby, so I thought he was good. I'm never a fan of, a dude's got a British accent, put him in there, soccer.
I thought you meant the part with Kaylin Carr and I can't remember the girl's name. Was it Jillian Sakovitz, maybe?
Kaylin's okay. Kaylin, for me, his best bit is like a man on the scene kind of bit, like he used to do when he would go visit. He did a series where he was going around to teams and stuff. I think he's better with that bit, but then that's because it's what he was doing. He's out of practice or has never done, as far as I know, this stand there on a set kind of vibe. I think it is interesting they're standing up and not sitting, but that is a newer thing that a lot of sports shows are doing.
They want to show off their shoes.
Yeah. The World Cup, we saw it a lot. It makes it look like a show to me that was out of practice. It's obviously brand new. The people aren't familiar with each other. Some of them don't know how to interact with the camera yet. People may not notice, but I notice that you don't know how to do this correctly, where the host asks you a question, you start to answer the question to her, then you turn to the camera and talk to us. And then as you're ending your question, you turn back to her and finish your question with her. They spend the whole time staring at her, and I'm staring at the side of their head. It's like, don't forget you're talking to the audience. You're not talking to the hostess. So that takes practice, and that takes skill, and it's hard. Is very, very, very difficult to do. If you think that is easy, you're out of your mind. But they just look like a show out of practice. That's all.
I guess, for a lot of these, these people that do club content or they've done MLS online stuff, in anything where TV's involved, like going from, like fully fledged TV to fully fledged TV is such a huge learning experience that, it's going to take a minute, but no, I think the talent lineup's got potential. I know you didn't like seeing Nigel Reo-Coker there. I mean, but I thought I did see him briefly and thought, that's a guy that always has good insight, whether it's his time with like West Ham or Vancouver, or in Chivas USA.
My complaint is not with him personally. It's just with this idea that sometimes, and MLS is guilty as hell of this for the last 27 years. It's like, a British name gives us soccer legitimacy, whether it be a coach or a talent or whatever. I just feel like we're past that.
Oh yeah.
Now Reo-Coker may be great. I'm not saying he's not. I just meant like as soon as I heard an accent, I was like, oh, here we go again.
I would hope it's just because he spent a few years in MLS and not because of his nationality.
That's fair.
Otherwise,
Totally fair.
Hey, I need a paycheck too. So
yeah.
We'll see how this season goes, but I still am of the belief the greatest studio production we ever got for Major League Soccer was Extra Time on ESPN with Rob Stone and Dave Durr. That was the best.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It was better than pretty good. Dave Durr was so good at explaining stuff tactically in a layman's way. I still am not sure I've ever seen anybody as natural as Dave Durr was in those moments of explaining what was going on a field to a newbie-ish audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do wonder why Dave is not still in TV anymore. I mean, he made us decide he wanted to go coaching, but everybody stops using him after a certain amount of time, and I don't know why. But
that was a great show. Do you remember?
It was
MLS or ESPN's MLS Extra Time. It was only on for what, 2 seasons?
I don't
season?
Remember. I think Rob Stone is fantastic. I like everything he does. So if you want to make him a host or whatever, I'm in. I think it's great.
Big money. Okay, well, everybody gets to sample it for themselves and provide feedback starting this weekend because it's free. It's so very free. So don't blow it and miss out on it. All right, here we go. It's time for predictions, gentlemen. Let's do our predictions. How do you want to do this, Buzz?
Just go through them and alternate me and Dan going first. And you also throw yours in, of course.
Okay. All right. So the first one you have written here in red crayon on the run sheet is FC Dallas place of finish. Does anybody want to go first?
I don't know. I guess not.
Okay. I will. Dan, do you want to go first?
I don't really care. I mean, I can. I'm going to say the same thing I said last year. Same thing I've said on a couple of those podcasts that go around the league. I don't know if they're going to finish 4th or 7th. It's something can go wrong, horribly wrong with this team, where it can all click. It all clicked last season and kind of surpassed all of our expectations, but the chance of lightning striking twice is pretty low. So somewhere in that 4th to 7th range.
You got to pick a number, Dan.
All right, fine. I'll go 5th.
Okay. Well, dagnabbit, that's what I was going to predict. 5th. And I will continue to do that. 5th. Buzz?
I'm going to go 4, actually. I think that they're the best team that's not among the elite challengers.
Hold on there, Mr. Price is right.
Yeah. You don't like my prediction?
I'll go $4.99.
Oh, because I outbid you by $1? Yeah. Sorry, I missed that joke. Woo!
That's awesome that the English guy told that joke. I love it.
Yeah, jokes don't go over my head. My reactions are too.
Hey, we had that show too.
Do you guys have Prices Right in England?
I mean, we did.
Is it the American version or is it an English version?
No, it was an English version.
Okay. All right. I am always enjoying the foreign iterations of American game shows, especially like Wheel of Fortune Slovenia or Wheel of Fortune Miramar or whatever it is.
I didn't know they had things like that.
Oh my God! I think there's got to be 45 different national productions of Wheel of Fortune. They just sold the rights to, and every once in a while on Wheel of Fortune, which my wife and I watch pretty much every night while we're making and eating dinner, they'll roll out like a highlight package of the Romanian Wheel of Fortune, the Irish Wheel of Fortune, the Mexican Wheel, and it's awesome to watch because the sets are different and even nuttier, and there's always a snide Pat Sajak of that particular nationality and some hot pointing out the letters. So
and crappy prizes.
Yeah,
the British one was always stuff like, "Hey, you've won a caravan holiday in Croatia." This was during the the whole war in Yugoslavia at the time.
Peter, I'm old enough to remember when you would take your money and bid on prizes.
And you would bid on prizes,
Yeah.
yes. And half the show is just watching people buy crap off a stage. Yes,
Yeah.
Totally remember that. I think people forget that. I'm sorry, we've totally digressed.
That was wheels off.
All right, so Buzz says fourth. Dan and I say fifth in the West. Now, Buzz, here in the red crayon, the next one you have is Golden Boot. Do you mean for the entire league or for FC Dallas?
Yeah, these are all FC Dallas bridges. Yeah.
Except
okay.
Dallas Cup winner potentially.
Well, yeah, except for that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, Buzz, you go first this time.
I'm going to stick with Jesus, but it's going to be way lower than last year. Like I tried to say last year when I said it would be a balance of scoring, sort of similar to that in the sense that now that they have a legitimate second striker, they'll actually try to more aggressively manage Jesus' minutes. And that means that he will score less. So I'm going to say he'll lead the team in scoring, but more like 12 to 13 goals instead of 18.
All right, now I'm just not going to let you slide. You're going to have to specify which of the three Jesuses on the team.
God dang it. I'm going to struggle with that Jesus Ferreira. Yeah, not Giovanni for sure.
Giovanni Jesus.
Yeah, I should have just stuck with Jesus, and then I could have been two guys. I meant Jesus Jimenez.
Yeah.
No, Jesus Ferreira will lead the team with like 12, 13.
So maybe it could be Jesus, which is Jesus Ferreira. It could be JJ for Jesus Jimenez.
Yeah.
And we could just call the other guy Giovanni. How about that?
There you go. Yep,
okay.
done.
All right.
Done.
Can we make that agreement for the podcast? That's how we define the three.
Can I offer an alternate? It don't have to be binding, but
okay, sure.
All the players call Jesus.
Which Jesus?
Ferreira.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, so you'd have Jesus, and Jesus.
Which one is Jesus?
Giovanni Jesus. That's how you say his name.
Oh,
His
okay.
Portuguese. Well, his name is Portuguese.
Know. I'm a white guy from Kaufman. I don't know. All right. Well, sure. We'll do it one of those two ways.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll just use Ferreira's real nickname, which is Zeus.
All right, so we got now I'm completely confused.
Yep.
All right, so Buzz says Mr. Ferreira. I am also considering I'm the guy that predicted Obrion last year.
You sticking with that?
No, but I was right for one game. I was right after game number one.
Yeah, I thought you were a genius after game one.
Yeah.
Tell us who's going to score in the first game of the season.
Who asked me that question again? Who do I think?
Tell us who's going to score in the first game of the season. That'll be your prediction.
Who's going to score the first goal of the season, or just who's going to score in the first game?
The first goal of the season. I mean, you did it last year with your top scorer pick.
That's
so
true.
You're going to do it again,
did.
Right?
Yeah, Paulie Nips will score the first goal of the season.
So that's your golden boot prediction?
No, but I'm gonna predict. I'm going to predict Mr. Ferreira as well as the top scorer of the season. That feels too obvious. Dan?
Yep.
Jesus Ferreira, 15 goals.
Okay. And I've got him at 14 goals. Okay. Next, top assist. I will go first. I am going to put Leggett at top assist. Buzz? Or Dan? Dan?
I'm going to say Paul of the Nipples.
Poor guy.
With his, great connection with Jesus Ferreira.
Okay. Buzz?
Well, here I thought I was going to have a dark horse. Leggett for me, too. That's why I thought I was going to be so unique with that. And apparently you also agree with me. Sebastian Leggett. Yeah.
I do. Okay.
Whole season, he'll jump up.
Okay. Breakout player. Interesting. What qualifies as a breakout player?
You may define it however you wish, as long as it's somebody from FC Dallas.
I will go first this time. My breakout player for this year is none other than the man that looks like a 1981 accountant Paxton Palmacar.
Oh, fuck. That was my choice.
Sorry, I got to go first. Yes, I think this is the year of Pax. That's my prediction. So, Dan, you got the same one, or are you just now going to change it for changing its sake?
I'll change it for change its sake. I'm going to say that this is the year that Nkosi Tafaro really kicks into gear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I know what Buzz is going to say.
Let's take Peter's second guess.
No, I'm sticking with Nkosi. I think this is the year of Nkosi Tafari. I think this is the year. I'm excited.
Okay.
I think he's taking a step forward.
All right, and everybody throw crap on the wall and see what sticks. Who are your MLS Cup and Conference Champ winners? Who's going to be in the final and who wins in that game? Who needs to go first in this one? Buzz, is it your turn or my turn?
You've done twice, first two in a row, so it's definitely not you.
All right, so is it Dan or you? Who goes first?
Dan's up.
Oh, Dan?
LAFC and anyone.
Say that one more time?
It'll be LAFC playing somebody. I don't know which one will win or who the other team will be.
We have to pick somebody.
Ah, shit. Let me look at the Eastern Conference.
Oh, no. Now he's clicking and clattering. He's putting it through the chat GTP or GPT to see if he can get an answer from artificial intelligence.
Right.
Ooh,
we should have.
I've got screen burn.
You know, we should have done that. We should have asked Chat GPT to write up like a whole narrative of how the MLS season's going to play out. That would actually be funny. Yes. Yeah. I wonder if it would do predictions. Is it capable of doing that?
I don't think it will do that. It's informational. Well, it ain't going to be Toronto. We know
just
that.
Pick somebody. Dan?
Let's just go unlikely and say Orlando for shits and giggles.
Okay.
All right. Where your head's at.
All right, Buzz?
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree on LAFC. I think they've made themselves better, which is amazing considering how good they were last year.
Because they got rid of Gareth Bale?
Yeah, they cleared that money. They've cleared off, a couple other things they've tried to improve where they were weak. I just like the moves they were already really good, and I liked the moves they made. So I can't go against them. And coming out of the West, I don't see anybody else close that actually has enough to get ahead of them, in my opinion. I'm going to go with an upset, though, in the East. I'm going to go that this is the year Brandon Vasquez and FC Cincinnati will make its MLS Cup.
I thought you were going to say Brandon Sylvania and Toronto would get
No, Vasquez. I think Vasquez, now that he's gotten in with the United States, I think he's going to ride a wave. Unless they sell in mid-season, I think I got FC Cincinnati is going to.
So Cincinnati, a team that finishes somewhere towards the bottom of the playoff pack, and then just rides an incredible run through the playoffs, or do you think they finish towards the top of the East?
I think they'll finish near the top of the East because they scored 64 goals last year, which is pretty good. That's a pretty elite category, but they gave up 56, and so I think they'll have done some things to try and be better defensively, and that'll be enough to put them into the top elite, and then they'll have whatever by then. And I'm throwing shit at a wall, but I think Brandon Vasquez is going to have a monster year and riding the wave of hype as he gets sort of cementing himself into the national team, and that's who I got losing to LAFC in the final.
Okay, and I'm going to predict a repeat of last year's MLS Cup, but I have Philly beating LAFC in a stunner.
The hell is wrong with you?
Well, I don't know.
Gazdag is a phenomenal player, so that's not a horrible prediction.
Yeah, I don't know. Just it seems to make it just feels like that if weird stuff's going to happen in this league, that's the kind of weird thing that would happen in this league. Is not just the same two teams show up in the final again, but maybe flip the positions and the other guys.
Have we ever had a repeat final in MLS?
Yeah, LA beat Houston 2 years in a row.
Right, that does sound familiar.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that was the other reason, just so that LAFC would go 2 in a row and kind of shit all over the Galaxy. But
all right, and I don't feel like I need to spend too much on. We need to spend too because we've already gone long enough as it is. But they did finally. I mean, it's just so stupid that it takes them this long. But they finally announced. Well, it's kind of stupid. They announced the playoff structure for this year, which is at least nice that they did the basics before the season actually started, because I think it was Phil Neville at Miami who was bitching about the fact that they were going into the season and they didn't know what the playoffs looked like, which was a totally legitimate bitch, right?
Completely fine, yeah.
So they announced it today. It's exactly what everybody was afraid of. 9 teams on both sides. There's a play-in game between number 8 and number 9, and then you go into the absolutely dreaded best-of-3 format for the next round. And then after that, it goes to 1-game knockout stages for the next up until the final. Am I repeating that correctly?
That's correct.
And after the best of 3 round, how many more rounds are there? There's a semifinal and then a conference final?
Yeah, and then MLS Cup. Yeah.
Okay. And I had some people say to me that they thought, hey, it's more games, and that best of 3 sounds like there's more. And I was like, man, every time I asked somebody this question, their question was, were you around the last time Major League Soccer did best of 3 in playoffs? No, I'm much younger than you. Thanks. Well, it was sucky when it was best of 3 last time.
Yeah, the only difference is they don't have the little mini game thing. Like each of the 3 games is a complete game and has to have a winner. So it's like you won't get to like this overtime 3rd game bullshit.
All right, but have you noticed, unless I've missed it and I dug around, they have not announced what that means. Does that mean they go to each game immediately goes to penalty kicks?
Yes, Peter, well, if you check thirddegree.net, you'll see that it mentions specifically that.
Oh, you found out. So what is the solution? What's the...
Well, the best of 3, if a match is tied at the end of regulation, this is a quote, no extra time is played. Teams will participate in kicks from the penalty spot to determine the winner. Each first round game has a winner. No ties, no aggregate score. First team to win 2 games advances. That's it.
So it's not even aggregate score.
Yep. It's just win 2 games.
Oh man, those first 2 games are going to be so defensive.
Probably. Yeah, that's the problem with it last time. Was everybody
those games
played,
are going to suck.
The first 2 games stunk. Well, I given that they're going best of 3, which I wasn't excited about, I do like this no aggregate, no ties, that like you have to win 2 games so that no matter what, you're not going to get this mini game crap at the end of the 3rd game stuff. It's just, PKs. Let's go. So.
This must drive your English football sensibilities nuts, Dan.
I mean, we got rid of the whole best of 3 and all that stuff.
Away goal?
Well, I mean, away goals annoyed the hell out of me, but like the whole best of 3 thing, it was such a weird concept. That used to be how you did the that used to be how you did the FA Cup. If it were, you would go to a replay and effectively have a best of 3 sort of finish. But I don't know, it seems so stupid doing that and then going to just single games. Yeah.
Go ahead. The only part I hate is the best of 3. I like the wild card game, of like the knockout game. Those are fun.
But you don't like the fact they're doing 9 teams as a conference.
No, but I getting rid of the first round bye is good. So I like that. I like the knockout play-in game. I like that. I just don't like the best of 3.
Like if you get the wild card, right, you play 1 game for the wildcard game. You play potentially 3 games for the first round, and then you play 1 game for the conference semi-final. That just seems ridiculous.
Well, the dumbest part of the whole thing is this whole thing they put in the release. I don't know if you saw it, Peter, where the MLS said this wasn't an Apple thing. We've been talking about this since 2021 or something.
That's
I'm
bullshit.
like, it's ridiculous. It's just because they want more playoff games. I mean, maybe that for other partners wanted more playoff games, but that's why. It's just manufactured more playoff games.
And they also want a guaranteed home game for any of the popular one and dones. If Seattle have an off year again and they're gone in the first round, great, they get a home game.
Well, they could have gotten a home game if they had done home and away. If they had to play multiple games, at least it just made it a home and away. I do understand why they did 3. They're just trying to manufacture games, but this league continues to work way too hard to make it way too easy to criticize it. It's maddening.
Especially after they finally figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the playoff structure of the last couple of years was pretty good. I didn't love the first round buys, but I thought all things considered, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a trade-off that there's a play-in game. Now it's down to 9, so that you could keep a playoff game and a play-in game, and eliminate the first round bye. Trade-off, I guess, but
I guess one thing is, the criticism of having a two-legged thing is that home advantage doesn't exist. You have teams that play better first game on the road. You have teams that play better on the road last. FC Dallas was obviously never great at that either way. But having the higher seed getting 2 home games at least does preserve the advantage that you've earned over the course of the season. It doesn't nullify your 34 games.
They didn't also include a tentative schedule of how those games will be played out, did they?
Oh, they did.
Did they? So
yeah.
So how what's the time frame between game 1 and game 3?
Oh, you'll love this, Peter.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the wild card
3
game,
games in 5 days or something?
No, it's like a week. The wild card game is on October 25th or 26th. That's fine. So October 28th to November 12th is the best of 3 series, right? So the 28th and 12th, that's 14 days. So
okay,
2
weeks for 3 games. Okay.
Super exciting. Then it's international bye week.
Okay.
So we lay out till November 25th because there's an international window.
Thanksgiving week.
Yeah. And then, the 25th to December 3rd is the finals, semifinals and finals, and MLS Cup is December 9th. I just love the fact that after the best of 3 is a full week off for an international window. That's, technically it's 13 days. So it's actually almost 2 weeks off between the round of 3 and the conference semifinal.
And if they had just done 1-game knockouts, what they could have done is use that international week to give a week off between the conference finals and MLS Cup.
Yes. Instead, you're going to get, granted, you'll beat somebody up in 3 games and then get a nice rest, I guess. But, nonetheless, it's,
that is a buzzkill.
It is a buzzkill, yeah.
As you can explain, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. Well,
that's fun.
That was it was an expected frustration and letdown when they announced all of that today.
Yeah.
And I did not appreciate the justification press release. That just screamed bullshit to me.
Yeah, it's
you mean after the Athletic had already released it?
Yeah,
because they were going to hold on to that for another week.
Sure, yeah, but I just oh no, this is the byproduct of a lot of study and third-party vendors and research and market finding. That's just crap.
It was like a crap kit or rebrand where some poor sap has to write an explanation for something that never had an explanation to begin with.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, real quickly, because I thought last week's hour-long worth of Kit Talk was such a huge success and loved by everybody.
Good, yeah.
I did not get one single complaint about an hour of Kit Talk, so maybe that's what we should be doing all the time.
Clearly you didn't run into Steve Davis.
Sorry. No, in fact, I did not run.
He was here on FC Dallas Radio.
Yeah. So the thing I wanted to ask is there were a few jerseys that came out after the pod. There was the Nashville. We did talk about the Johnny Cash, but we finally saw it.
Yeah.
It's very black on black on black.
It's fine.
And then we
they
got
stand out better than I thought.
It's a little silverish.
Yeah. And then we got the St. Louis away, which has the pinstripes. I thought that kind of reminded me of the the original North Texas white shirt.
Yeah. By the way, it did not break the internet. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Were they predicting that it was going to?
Yeah, that was.
It may have broken somebody's monitor. They thought they had some dead pixels.
Yeah.
Love the newbie fan bases. And then the last one was the Minnesota.
Oh my God, love
gimmick.
that thing.
Yeah.
I applaud the fact that the colors are like bleeding back in and pushing the gray out. That's clever. After they've been gray for like 4 years, they're finally bringing color back.
It's called an ombre. Is that what that is? I think.
I don't know. It's not a super good execution. Compare it to the Orlando away, which is so good. This Minnesota one to me is not that good, but conceptually it was a good idea about it. It didn't quite work for me.
It's gorgeous.
Dan likes it. Yeah, it's not. The colors are nice. I will admit that.
Have either one of you finally seen the Burn Baby Burn kit in person?
No.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Please report, sir.
Yeah, I went to Soccer 90 after checking out the North Texas scrimmage. It looks a lot better in person. The color is a lot closer to Wasabi in person. Funnily enough, the accompanying scarf, they actually put the Burn horse surrounded in like full green. They didn't go with the gold like Adidas. There's some nice little details on it, actually. I definitely recommend see it in person.
Is it white or off-white, the rest of the body of the shirt?
You know what? I didn't really notice it. It looked white to me, but I can't say I saw it in the greatest of lights. You know, the light in there can be a bit dark sometimes with the tinted windows.
Okay, very good. All right, so I think we've reviewed all the shirts.
And the colors on the other jerseys actually look a lot better. The Charlotte one's pretty nice in person. The Colorado one, colors look solid on. I didn't. They seem to. I mean, you've said it before. They filter those photos so heavily that sometimes you just have to see them in person.
Yes. All right. Well, very good. I think we've done plenty enough for today. Would you agree, Buzzard?
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to the U17 players
Shout
that are
out!
playing in the CONCACAF Championship. Malachi Molina played, I think he started every game for Jamaica, who've been eliminated, but they played every game. And Nairobi Vargas is scoring goals right and left for Honduras. They look legitimate contenders, and he looks different than he's ever looked here. So when you're talking about a guy that was kind of fringe of whether he was going to be a homegrown, this may be one of those explosive moments that puts him into the discussion for future homegrowns. If you've ever seen him, he's a grown-ass man. So it's kind of exciting from a FC Dallas perspective. There's a couple other guys that are playing, but those are the two that have really stood out. So with their contributions from FC
Is this
Dallas.
where you're verbally going to berate all of the people that are complaining about Puerto Rico?
I should. I don't know whether they're trying to be funny or what the deal is. If people haven't noticed, there are some complaints. I don't know that they're complaints. Complaints are being floated that in general, there's a lot of American kids playing for these CONCACAF nations, which is fine. But people are really complaining that the entire Puerto Rican team appears to be made up of American kids when Puerto Rico is part of the United States. So what are you? Of course, they're all American kids. They're literally American citizens because they're Puerto Rican. That's what that means.
You may overestimate people.
Well, so I will share that this was an exchange back and forth in our WhatsApp group that we, or whatever the thing that we use all the time. GroupMe, yes, sorry. The GroupMe chat between the three of us where Buzz suddenly educated me to something that at my age I was stunned, which was Buzz tried to make an analogy about Puerto Rico to the United States in the same way that in the United Kingdom there's Ireland and Wales and Scotland. And I was like, record scratch. Whoa, wait a second. What? Because, and again, I think I'm the one that's wrong here. I've always thought that Wales and Scotland were their own individual countries. I know they were part of some sort of larger functioning body that represented on a global stage called the United Kingdom. But Buzz was teaching me that the United Kingdom itself is the country, and England, Wales, and Scotland, and whatever else are actually more like states.
Northern Ireland.
Ireland.
They were independent countries and they joined together into the United Kingdom. Like the United States are states, like a commonwealths and states that became a country. So those other countries became a country. Now, Dan would tell you that they're countries. Well, they're countries that became a country. You have a United Kingdom passport. The United Kingdom's in the United Nations. The United Kingdom was in the European Union, not those individual other countries. Now, whether you think they're individual countries, because they still do have their own parliaments and prime ministers and stuff, but they can make their own individual laws, but they all are still answerable to the UK parliament and prime minister. So it's complicated, but in a way, yes, they're kind of like states. And in this case specifically, Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, yet it has its own national team. But everyone in Puerto Rico, everyone that is a citizen of Puerto Rico, is an American. So like to complain that the Puerto Rican national team is made up of all Americans because they're Americans.
Well, I knew that part.
Yeah.
I was still, my head's still, I'm still spinning over your revelation about the United Kingdom, and I'm still not sure because Dan seemed to push back on that a little bit, and he's actually a citizen over there. So,
well, he is, but he's got a UK passport, or he was a citizen. You know,
it's a little complicated, but it's not a horrible analogy.
Equate it, if you will, to the Texas joining the United States by treaty. Texas was an independent nation, joined the United States. So, in a way, the kingdom of the first one was the Kingdom of Scotland and the Kingdom of England joined together to make the United Kingdom. They became one country.
Right.
So
okay.
it's a semantic, but it's true. So, you know, and if you're a citizen of any of the UK countries, you can play for any of the other countries in the UK.
That's not true.
No, I thought it was.
No.
Oh.
Only if you were born in the Isle of Man or Jersey.
Oh, okay. I thought you could just pick whoever you wanted.
Nope.
Maybe.
Otherwise, Scotland wouldn't be absolutely god awful. They'd just be the England B team.
Okay.
But that's the Republic of Ireland.
Well, those are
instead.
weird rules because the home countries make up the IFB rules committee. You know, they have 4 of the 8 votes, and FIFA has four. So, you know, it's all powerful.
Well, I feel I feel way too old to be learning something like this. So shame on me, but thanks, Buzz.
You're welcome
for that.
That doesn't get over my anger that people are mad that Puerto Rico's got Americans. Like Chris Armas played for Puerto Rico and then played for the United States. And Brandon Cervania played for the U.S. and his brother Jaden played for Puerto Rico. They've played against each other, and Puerto Rico's tried to recruit Brandon to make the switch because he's only played one friendly for the United States. So they've tried to get him. Puerto Rico has.
Is Puerto Rico one of those nationalities that don't actually qualify for FIFA, but they have a national team? They're not in the list of FIFA
no, they're more like
qualifying.
England. Yeah.
Huh?
They play in qualifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like Bermuda, which is a British territory, or in a way, they're like Wales. That they're Puerto Rico's not an independent country, but it has its own federation. Right, that's the key. So, but you're in terms of soccer. If you're an American citizen or Puerto Rico citizen, you're an American. So you're eligible for both teams. You just have to pick which one you want. The question would be, can you play for Puerto Rico if you don't have some Puerto Rican connection? I don't know how that works. I mean, Brandon's a Puerto Rican descent. That's how he can do it. But
his brother plays for them, right?
Yeah, Jaden Cervania. And Chris Armas is the other example of a guy who did both. Now whether like you, Peter, could play for Puerto Rico, I don't know how that works. I don't pay that close of attention to that. But they are. The funny was the complaint was that they out as Americans, and I'm like, you're out. Never mind. It made me mad.
Well. I am, out of all of this, since we're about to wrap this up, I am interested in hearing from Steve Davis that I know he doesn't like Kit Talk, but does he appreciate social studies with Buzz Carrick as part of the podcast? All right,
I do feel badly. My bad.
All right, well, Dan, thank you very much. Good predictions, sure. Hope somebody wrote all these down so we can go back to them at the end of the season and enjoy the opening weekend, my good friend.
Thank you too. Enjoy deciding whether to listen to Mark Followell or Stephen Owen.
That is going to be an odd. You probably will pick one for one half and one the other half, and just kind of go from there.
Maybe you could just put Mark on the TV and then just pick up either the iHeartRadio app or the FC Dallas app and play Stephen Owen and just kind of do some stereo sound.
Yeah, you know what? Just a quick note. I was impressed. I did sample the audio layover of the radio broadcast, and I was very impressed that they seemingly have figured out how to sync that stuff up pretty well. So,
did they test it?
Yeah, at least when I was watching the New England game, you could pick the New England, whatever the home team was at that point, you could pick the local team, and it appeared to be synced. I don't know those guys, and again, I was watching on a telephone in a restaurant, and I was holding it up to my ear, but it looked like it was very well synced, which is a surprise to me. They figured it out that quickly, but then again, it's Apple. There you go.
Third Degree, the podcast has been brought to you by Soccer90.com. 20% off when you know the code Third Degree, Soccer90.com. FC Dallas gear, national team gear, North Texas gear, international gear, everything you can want, they've got it. Soccer90.com. Enter code Third Degree at checkout, 20% off.
All right, and Buzz, thank you, sir. Congratulations on a launch of another, what will definitely be a successful season of covering Football Club Dallas.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, season 26, and thank you for hosting for us.
Yes, long live Third Degree. and go break in the casita. All right, sir?
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, you FC Dallas Curious fans. Good luck on this upcoming season. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, as I always say. And we will speak to you next week, episode number 200 of Third Degree, the podcast.
Let's go.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.